The living room buzzed with noise, voices overlapping, glasses clinking, fake laughter echoing off the walls. The whole family was crowded around the dining table, a spread of food laid out like it was Thanksgiving, except tonight wasn't about me. It was about my brother Ryan. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Congratulations, son, my dad's voice boomed, raising his glass of whiskey. Air boy, now the senior manager at Wells and Parker. I told you, you were destined for greatness. Everyone clapped. Some even stood to hug Ryan. My mom squeezed his hand with tears in her eyes like he'd just won a Nobel Prize. Meanwhile, I sat in the corner, my untouched plate of food growing cold. I had news too. It wasn't massive, not billionaire level, but it was mine. My first job, an entry-level assistant at a respected firm. I had walked into that office earlier today with trembling hands and walked out with a contract in my bag, and a smile I couldn't contain. But the moment I tried to speak, my words drowned in the noise of Ryan's celebration. Dad, Mom? I started, my voice soft but hopeful. No one turned. Instead, my aunt leaned across the table, asking Ryan, "So, how much is the raise? Enough to buy a new car?" Ryan smirked, looking smug in his pressed suit. "Maybe more than a car. I'm aiming for the condo next." Laughter rippled through the room again. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. My chest ached in that silent way it does when you know you don't matter here. My fork clinked against my plate as I forced myself to eat, just so I wouldn't break. But then, everything shifted. The sound of a car pulling up outside caught everyone's attention. Not just any car, the deep hum of an engine that didn't belong in this suburban street. Through the blinds, bright headlights cut across the lawn. Tires crunched against gravel, and the chatter in the room faltered. "Who the hell is that?" my uncle muttered. A sleek black limousine stopped in front of our house. The driver stepped out, tall and dressed in a black suit. He moved with precision, opening the back door, and then he stepped out. The billionaire everyone had been whispering about for months, Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises. He was young, mid-30s, powerful in a way that filled the air before he even spoke. His presence made the laughter die instantly, like he carried silence with him. My dad froze with his drink halfway to his lips. My mom's jaw slackened. Ryan adjusted his collar nervously, almost instinctively standing straighter. Ethan walked inside without hesitation, as though he already knew exactly where he was going. His sharp eyes scanned the room once, then locked onto me. The air left my lungs. Everyone else followed his gaze, confusion spreading across their faces. And then, "Emily," Ethan said, his voice commanding but calm, "I've been looking for you." Every pair of eyes turned to me, the girl in the corner, the one ignored all night. Ryan's smile twitched, his face paling. My mom whispered, "Wait, he knows you?" The billionaire CEO didn't even glance at them. He only walked toward me, extending his hand like this had been planned all along. And in that moment, their faces froze. Ethan's hand stayed outstretched, calm and certain. I stood, heart pounding. The room was silent except for Ryan's sharp inhale. "Emily Harper," Ethan said, eyes steady on me. "I came for you." My father jumped in quickly, desperate to redirect. "Mr. Cole, welcome. I'm Daniel Harper. This is my son Ryan. You may know him. Just promoted at Wells, and Parker," Ryan stepped forward, smiling too wide. "It's an honor, sir. Our firm actually pitched to your logistics division." But Ethan barely looked at him. "Congratulations," he said flatly, then returned his gaze to me. "Emily, your memo came across my desk. Sharp, fearless. You noticed problems others ignored." My mother frowned. "Memo?" Ethan continued, ignoring the tension. "Bracken and Lyle was acquired today, which means the job they offered you is now under Cole Enterprises. But your work, those notes you wrote, proved you see things differently. That's why I'm here." My aunt scoffed. "She's never worked in corporate? How could she know anything about operations?" Ethan's tone didn't waver. "Because initiative speaks louder than titles." He paused, then added, "We're holding a late-night strategy session at my Austin office. I want her in the room. If I'm wrong, it's just a drive. If I'm right, it's her first step." The silence was heavy. My father muttered, "This isn't how careers happen. No, I said quietly, surprising myself. But maybe it should be. Ryan leaned close, voice low with venom. You'll embarrass yourself. And us. I met his stare. Or maybe I won't. Ethan didn't rescue me. He just waited, measuring. That silence gave me the push. I grabbed my bag, slipped on my jacket, and walked past Ryan. Outside, the limo door opened like it had been waiting only for me. The leather seats of the limo were softer than I imagined, but I could barely breathe. My hands twisted in my lap while Ethan sat across from me, perfectly calm. The city lights flickered past the tinted windows, each one making me feel further away from the house I'd just left. You look nervous, he said finally, his voice steady, not mocking. I am, I admitted. I don't understand why you'd want me in that room. I've never been in corporate meetings. I don't belong with executives. Ethan leaned forward slightly. That's exactly why I want you there. People who think they belong usually stop seeing the cracks. You don't carry their blind spots. I pressed my palms against my knees, trying to ground myself. But what if I freeze? What if I say something stupid? Then you learn, he said simply. But from what I've read, you don't freeze. You ask questions people avoid. The confidence in his tone made my chest tighten. Nobody had ever spoken about me like that. Not my parents, not my brother. The limo rolled into an underground garage. Security guards waved us through instantly. The driver opened the door, and my legs trembled as I stepped out. This was real. Inside the elevator, the silence stretched until Ethan spoke again. Tonight isn't about proving yourself to me. It's about proving you won't shrink when you finally get a chance. The doors slid open to a bright, open office, whiteboards covered in notes, a big screen flashing red alerts, and 4 people standing around a long table. They looked up the moment Ethan walked in. Then their eyes shifted to me. Team, Ethan said briskly. This is Emily Harper. She's the reason I called this session. The room went still. One woman, sharp eyes, hair pulled back tight, crossed her arms. She's the one who wrote that memo? Yes, Ethan replied. And tonight, I want her to speak freely. My throat tightened, but I stepped closer, heart hammering. All my life, I'd been the quiet shadow at the table. Now, for the first time, every eye was on me, and no one in the room looked ready to dismiss me. The woman with her arms crossed studied me like she was weighing my entire existence in 5 seconds. Her voice was firm, clipped. Name's Alicia Vega. I run operations oversight. We've got a live problem in Jacksonville. Forklift incident. No one hurt, but the near misses are piling up. Corporate's asking for either a costly top-down policy fix or something faster. Tell me, what would you do? The question hit me like a punch. My pulse raced, every pair of eyes waiting. I could feel Ryan's words echoing in the back of my mind. You'll embarrass yourself. I forced myself to breathe and walked closer to the screen. Rows of numbers blinked red, showing times, shifts, and incidents. I remembered what I had written in my memo at 2 a.m., my hands shaking, wondering if anyone would ever read it. I swallowed. You don't have a forklift problem? I said slowly. You have a people problem. Same aisle, same shift. It's not random. It's culture. If you write a new policy, it'll just get ignored. You need the right voices on that floor. Alicia raised her brow. Voices? Yes. Who's your most respected line lead? The one the workers trust without being told. A pause, then Alicia answered instantly. Keisha Turner, 10 years in, knows every inch of that floor. Then why hasn't she been in your last 3 safety huddles? I asked, pointing to a column of names. The analyst in the hoodie blinked, scrolling his tablet. She's been filling in for a sick supervisor, buried in paperwork. Exactly. I turned back to the group. You pulled your anchor off the floor when you needed her voice most. That silence created the pattern you're seeing. For a moment, no one said anything. Then Alicia's mouth curled into the faintest smile. She's not wrong. The man in the suit jacket leaned forward. Even if that's true, how do we fix it without throwing money at consultants? Put Keisha back on the floor immediately, I said, my voice gaining strength. Pair her with whoever carries influence informally, the ones who write nicknames on the sign-in sheets. Don't add rules. Start with nightly aisle huddles, 3 nights in a row, then skip 1. Keep them short, story-based, and let Keisha call out the near misses by name, no blame. Then let the influencers take over telling those stories. If the pattern shifts, you've moved the culture without burning millions. The analyst let out a low whistle. That's different. Alicia's eyes stayed on me, sharper now, but not in doubt. In approval. She's right. You change behavior through stories, not memos. It's exactly what I would have suggested if corporate hadn't been breathing down our necks. Ethan's expression hadn't changed, but his eyes told me everything. He wasn't surprised. He expected me to stand in this fire and not burn. The finance guy cleared his throat. And if it doesn't work? Then you're back where you started, I replied. But at least you'll know if the problem is systemic or cultural. That's worth the risk. The room buzzed quietly. Notes were taken. Heads nodded. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the quiet girl in the corner. I felt like someone who belonged at the table. The air in that glass-walled conference room felt heavy, charged with something I'd never experienced before. It wasn't just the hum of laptops or the sharp smell of dry erase markers from the boards covered in half-erased diagrams. It was the weight of people looking at me not as a background presence, but as someone worth listening to. Alicia finally broke the silence, her arms no longer crossed but her hands on her hips. She's right. If we don't shift culture, policies will only mask the problem. We'll be back here in 2 months. The analyst, Marco, typed furiously, numbers flashing on his screen. If we measure the near-miss reduction by floor section and plot against influence nodes, we'll know in days whether her method works. The man in the rolled-up sleeves leaned back, studying me. He'd been skeptical from the start, and I could still see the doubt in his eyes, but it was softer now, grudgingly respectful. You're telling us to gamble with operational continuity on the word of, no offense, an assistant who hasn't even started her first day? I felt my throat tighten, but before I could speak, Ethan did. His tone was cool but razor sharp. She isn't gambling. She's analyzing. There's a difference. The man opened his mouth, but Ethan cut him off with the slightest tilt of his head, his voice calm but absolute. You've had years of experience and missed this. She hasn't, and she saw it. That's not a gamble. It's clarity. I tried to steady my breathing. My hands were still trembling under the table, but my voice carried when I said, I don't expect you to hand me authority. I expect you to test the idea. If it fails, it fails. But if it works, you'll save lives. And millions. Alicia nodded. I'll run with it. Pull Keisha back into the fold. I'll make sure she's at the next midnight huddle. And if it shifts the floor, we'll know this wasn't luck. Ethan leaned forward, finally folding his hands on the table. That's settled. Emily, anything else? I swallowed hard, scanning the screen again. My eyes caught a smaller, blinking alert at the edge of the dashboard. Deferred vendor certifications. My pulse kicked. Yes, I said carefully. You can't ignore that compliance gap. But don't broadcast it right now. If the floor thinks it's about clipboards and paperwork, they'll tune out. Fix it quietly while you fix culture openly. If you do both at once, they'll clash. Alicia smirked. She's sharp. I like her. The finance man sighed, running a hand over his face. Fine, we'll do it her way. But if this blows back, it won't. Ethan interrupted, his tone final. The room shifted into motion. Marco fired off emails. Alicia grabbed her phone, barking orders. The air felt electric now, like a machine turning alive. And through it all, I sat there in disbelief, my chest aching from how surreal it felt. Ethan stood, signaling the meeting was over. But before we left, Alicia stopped me. Listen, Emily, she said, her voice lower, less sharp. Don't waste this. People like us, we usually get ignored until the building's already on fire. You had the nerve to speak before the fire spread. That matters. Keep doing it. I nodded, my throat thick. Thank you. As Ethan and I walked back toward the elevator, I caught a glimpse of myself in the glass. Same denim jacket, same nervous girl. But I didn't look invisible anymore. I looked like someone stepping into something I'd never dared dream of. The limo ride back was quieter. Ethan didn't fill the silence with small talk. He let me sit in my thoughts, and it was almost unbearable how many thoughts I had. Finally, I asked, why me? You could have chosen someone with degrees, years of experience, people already polished for this. His eyes held mine steadily. Because polish hides cracks. You don't hide them, you look at them. That's rarer than you think. The car rolled up in front of my parents' house, the lights were still on, shadows moving inside. My stomach sank, knowing exactly what waited for me. When the driver opened my door, I hesitated. My legs felt heavy. But Ethan's voice stopped me. Remember, Emily, you don't owe them explanations. You owe yourself proof. I nodded and stepped out. Inside, the living room was just as I'd left it, but colder. My father stood with his drink still in hand, my mother rigid beside him, Ryan pacing like a caged animal. The party atmosphere had evaporated into thick, choking silence. "Where were you?" my father demanded, his voice sharp. "Do you have any idea how that looked? Running off in front of everyone like you were important?" Ryan's glare cut into me. "Do you think you're special now? He's just using you, Emily. People like him don't take girls like you seriously. You'll ruin our family's name acting like you belong in his world." My aunt chimed in, her voice dripping with disdain. "We tried to raise you humble, and this is what you do? Throw yourself at powerful men." The words burned, but something inside me had shifted tonight. I straightened my shoulders, feeling the strength of the meeting still buzzing under my skin. "He didn't come here for you," I said softly, staring at Ryan. "He came here for me." The room froze. My father's face twisted. My mother's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in my life, they looked unsettled. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of their silence.